I was chatting with the logistics manager down at the shipping docks recently. He was pointing at these massive containers of steel and consumer goods, practically gloating about the recent tariff hikes. He had this tough guy energy, telling me how we were finally sticking it to the competition by taxing their exports. To him, global power was something tangible, heavy, physical stuff you can drop on your foot. He was convinced that this trade war was a simple wrestling match that could be won with brute economic force.
Right, the old way of thinking, exactly. But then I asked him a single, quiet question. What happens if the microchips stop coming from Taiwan? And I can imagine the reaction.
The change in his demeanor was instant. That confident, almost arrogant smirk vanished. He didn't have a blustery answer about trade deficits anymore. Instead, he just went quiet, looked at the horizon, and muttered that the entire port, and likely the global economy, would grind to a halt within days. It was a jarring shift. He was cheering for a trade war, he understood steel and soy, while completely missing the fact that the battlefield had already shifted beneath his feet. He was playing a game of checkers with cargo ships, while the superpowers are now playing a survival game with silicon.
Yeah.
That silence of his reveals the terrifying reality of what we now call geotechnopolitics. We aren't just fighting over borders or tariffs anymore. We are in a zero-sum race for the microscopic architecture of the future, and the cost of losing might be a $10 trillion depression.
It really does ground the whole conversation, doesn't it?
It does, and that's the core realization we're tackling in this deep dive. The battlefield has become invisible. It's shrunk down to the microscopic level of, silicon and software. So our mission today is to really examine that invisible battlefield. This race for the microscopic architecture of the future, all driven by advanced technology strategy.
We're focusing on one specific massive effort.
We're taking a comprehensive look at the highly coordinated long-term effort to transform China into a global technological powerhouse. We need to look at the outcomes, the strategic momentum that's been generated by policies like Made in China 2025 and its huge digital infrastructure build-out.
Right. The goal is to understand the strategic gains and really the profound implications of this transformation for the entire global economy.
And what this all means for the balance of power.
And what really stands out when you start digging in is the sheer scale of it all. The coordination. This isn't just, organic market growth. This is a full-on mobilization of state capital, of strategic mandates, all designed to bypass vulnerabilities and really to reshape global tech supply chains from the ground up.
So where do we even begin with something that massive?
So to grasp the success of those big industrial policies, you have to start with the engine, the invisible engine that's providing all the raw energy for that success, computing power. Okay, so let's start there. The indispensable engine. If you think about the modern economy, computing power is it. It's the new engine. It's become the battleground for global technological supremacy.
Why? What makes it so fundamental?
Because it is, quite literally, the oxygen supply for artificial intelligence. Without massive, accessible computing power, AI just starves. It can't function.
So when we say computing power, you're not just talking about processor speed, are you? It's broader than that.
Much broader. We define it as the total ability to process data. So that includes the physical server infrastructure, all the data storage capabilities, and crucially, the high-speed network capacity that ties it all together.
And China's national strategy has been to just pour investment into this foundation.
Aggressive, government-driven investment. It underpins their entire AI ambition.
And when you look at the numbers, the commitment is, it's truly staggering. According to their Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, the country's total computing power hit 280 EFLOPs by the end of 2024.
Which is a number that's almost impossible to visualize. An EFLOPs is 1 quintillion operations per second.
Right. It's an abstract, huge number, but what seems to matter is the strategic focus within that capacity.
Exactly. The intelligent computing power, the kind that's specifically for AI training and deployment, that accounted for 90 of those EFLOPs.
So that's already about 30% of the entire nation's processing muscle dedicated just to AI.
And that dedicated capacity is the crucial indicator. It shows you exactly where the strategic priorities are.
And the goal is to accelerate this even more.
Yeah, the near-term national goal is to boost the total capacity to 300 EFLOPs by 2025, and they want that AI computing part to rise to 35% of the total.
And there's a clear economic justification for this push.
A very clear one. Wu Hequan, who's a prominent academician, he calculated that every single yuan invested in computing power drives 3 to 4 yuan in GDP growth.
Wow, so a 300 to 400% return?
Yeah. I mean, that's not just a nice statistic. It frames this massive infrastructure project as the most foundational economic development strategy they have. It's practically mandatory.
Okay, but how do they make sure this infrastructure is secure and, domestically controlled? That seems to be where the architecture of this national cloud gets really interesting.
It's a very deliberate pivot toward national champions.
Away from private enterprise?
Well, toward state-owned carriers as the foundation. Take China Telecom, for instance. It's really cemented its role as the national cloud leader.
With their Tianyi cloud platform.
Right, which is now the nation's largest cloud service provider by revenue. It hit 113.9 billion yuan in 2024.
And that's significant because it surpassed Alibaba Cloud.
Which is a huge deal. It signals a major strategic shift in domestic cloud dominance. It's moving away from purely private companies toward, let's call it state-backed reliability and security.
So this isn't just about market dynamics, it's about strategic control. They're building a system where the digital foundation is resilient, right? Resilient to outside pressures.
That's it, exactly. And China Telecom's internal strategy is a perfect mirror of that national mandate. They want massive scale combined with absolute self-reliance.
So they build these mega computing clusters in critical hubs.
In Shanghai and Beijing. But the most strategically important element, the real key, is their development of a fully self-reliant cloud stack.
The whole software layer.
The whole thing, including a distributed cloud operating system they call CTUN-OS.
And this isn't just some commercial OS.
No, this is certified for national security reliability. When we talk about geotechnopolitics, this is it. Having your own indigenous operating system running your national data centers is absolutely essential for reducing vulnerability and, ensuring strategic control over your digital foundations.
It minimizes the attack surface and maximizes sovereignty. Makes sense. And yet, for all this focus on homegrown tech, they're not avoiding open source.
No, they're leveraging it strategically. They actually open source their large language model, Xingqian, which means Star Ocean. It boasts trillions of parameters.
For a state-owned enterprise to do that is unusual.
It's a powerful move. It's designed to accelerate adoption and integrate the tech rapidly across the entire economy.
And that LLM is paired with a data platform.
Right, the StarC data intelligence platform. It aggregates an immense 10 trillion tokens of high-quality data sets, and it's already being deployed across more than 50 industry-specific AI applications.
So they're creating this open access AI ecosystem.
Yeah, one that's designed to just proliferate intelligent services rapidly across government, manufacturing, education, everywhere.
And that proliferation is the whole point. It moves AI from being a novelty in the big tech hubs to being a tool that's available everywhere. We're seeing this computing power translate directly into AI penetrating traditional industries. The data really confirms it. Industrial automation is hitting critical mass. The ministry's figures are striking over 30,000 basic level smart factories, 1,200 advanced ones, and 230 exemplary intelligent factories are now operating. And that covers 80% of manufacturing sectors.
80%. This is the industrial backbone of the economy getting a very rapid, very significant intelligence upgrade.
And this isn't just about adding a few sensors to the factory floor. It's about deploying sophisticated AI agents to manage complexity.
Right. Look at the automaker FAW Group. They unveiled an enterprise AI agent called OpenMind. It's built on Alibaba's Qwen large language model.
And what does it do?
It's designed to streamline complex business processes, interpret policy documents, provide really sophisticated decision-making support right inside the company.
So it's moving AI from customer-facing chatbots to a core corporate function, optimizing internal logistics and strategy.
And you can see the quantifiable return on this. In Spur-Yunzu, they collaborated with a cable manufacturer. They trained a specialized model using very specific industry data on optical fiber sintering and maintenance.
And the result?
A 20% boost in productivity and a 30% jump in maintenance efficiency. These are clear, tangible returns on investment that justify the whole national strategy.
But what really impressed me was the depth of this penetration. It's not just the big coastal industrial zones.
No, not at all.
Take Lishuan in Hubei province. It's a county-level locality. They leveraged Huawei's Ascend computing infrastructure and iFlytek's Spark model to launch the nation's first county-level tourism AI.
That's incredible.
They run an AI travel Lichuan mini program that offers personalized itinerary planning and marketing optimization for local businesses. This completely shatters the idea that this tech is just for Tier 1 cities.
It shows the infrastructure is actively reaching into rural economic transformation. It's ready to accelerate the digital economy across the entire country.
Right, and that nationwide ubiquity, as you said, sets the stage for our next topic.
Exactly. This massive build-out of computing capacity isn't happening in a vacuum. It's a foundational resource investment that feeds directly into the outcomes of broader long-term industrial policies.
Specifically, Made in China 2025.
The success of the computing revolution is deeply intertwined with that policy framework, which was established almost a decade ago.
Okay, so let's talk about Made in China 2025. MIC 25. It launched in 2015, and it was probably the most audacious industrial policy of the 21st century.
No question.
The explicit goal was to transform China from being large but not strong in manufacturing into a true global manufacturing powerhouse by 2025. To move up the value chain, reduce reliance on foreign tech in 10 key sectors. So, as we get close to that deadline, how do we grade the outcome?
Well, the overall assessment is overwhelmingly positive, at least in terms of strategic momentum and industrial capability. The plan absolutely contributed to strengthening the country's position as the world's industrial hub. It enhanced their ability to innovate.
But there's a but here.
There is. The specific quantifiable targets were exceptionally high. I mean, localization targets for certain high-end components were often set at 70 or 80%.
Which is incredibly ambitious.
Right. As a result, specific goals were met or exceeded in only about half of the 10 focus sectors.
Wait a second. Meeting only half the targets? On paper, that sounds like a failure, especially when the goal was self-sufficiency. How was that shortfall explained? I mean, what was the official reason for missing goals in, say, aerospace or specialized machine tools?
That's a fair challenge. The official line and what the analysis shows actually converge here. Even where the specific number targets were missed, the investment created these immense structural gains and fostered domestic champions that didn't exist before.
Okay.
The shortfall in those really high-end sectors often came down to the immense complexity and the time needed for basic research. You can't just throw money at a problem and catch up to decades of accumulated expertise in Germany or Japan overnight.
So the takeaway isn't the missed number.
No. The key takeaway is that the sustained investment created huge spillover benefits and undeniable momentum. It solidified China's status as a formidable global manufacturing peer. The strategic gains really do outweigh the tactical misses on specific percentage points.
And I think the best evidence for that strategic gain has to be the electric vehicle sector, or new energy vehicles, NEVs as they call them.
Oh, absolutely. This is the unqualified success story of MIC 25.
The original goal was to sell 3 million indigenous NEVs domestically.
And they hit that target in 2021, which is remarkable because that was just 1 year after the entire global market totaled 3 million sales.
That really puts the velocity of their adoption and production into perspective.
It does. And the market share dominance is just startling. By 2024, Chinese brands had roughly 91% of the domestic NEV market.
And globally?
Globally, Chinese brands accounted for 62% of the world's EV market share.
You just have to look at a company like BYD to see that growth curve. In 2015, they sold, around 69,000 NEVs?
Something like that, yeah. In 2024, that number exploded to over 4.2 million units. That kind of rapid scaling is a direct result of coordinated state policy.
And the coordination is the genius behind it, right? It wasn't just about consumer subsidies.
Not at all. From 2015 to 2019, the government mandated that any EV had to use Chinese-made batteries to qualify for state subsidies.
One policy decision.
And that one decision forced vertical integration across the entire supply chain. It guaranteed that domestic manufacturers would benefit at every single step.
So today?
Today, Chinese players dominate about 85% of global battery cell production capacity. And critically, they control the processing of key minerals like lithium and cobalt needed for those batteries.
Which creates a global dependency, a powerful geopolitical tool.
Exactly. And that same pattern of coordinated success is perfectly mirrored in the electrical equipment and clean technology sectors. This is where historical support really met the MIC 25 strategy and just cemented global leadership.
Take solar energy.
Through coordinated policy, they achieved not just massive economies of scale, but total vertical integration. They control every stage: polysilicon refining, wafer production, cells, final assembly, all of it.
And the market share reflects that.
Today, Chinese companies command at least 80% market share in every single sector of the global solar supply chain. That's up from 47% in 2015. They aren't just the factory floor for solar anymore. They're the dominant technological force.
The scale of deployment is just as impressive. In wind energy, 6 of the 10 dominant turbine makers globally are now Chinese.
And by 2023, they commanded over 60% of the global market. They also met their domestic solar and wind installation target of 1,200 gigawatts 6 years early.
6 years. That speaks to an industrial capacity that can execute massive projects at a rate that is, well, it's unparalleled.
And then there's ultra-high voltage transmission, UHV. This is crucial for moving massive amounts of power over long distances with minimal loss. You needed to get renewable energy from remote areas into dense cities.
And their market share there.
It's staggering. Chinese firms have a 99% market share for UHV power line components, and they've built about 90% of all global UHV lines.
So let's break that down. What are the geopolitical consequences of controlling UHV standards? Sounds technical, but why should you care that Chinese firms dominate this niche?
Because UHV lines represent the absolute pinnacle of modern electrical grid engineering. By controlling nearly all the manufacturing and installation, Chinese firms are effectively defining the global standard for high-capacity power transmission.
So when other countries need this technology...
When developing nations, or even developed nations modernizing their grids, need this tech, they are highly dependent on Chinese specifications, Chinese components, and often Chinese financing. It gives Beijing soft power leverage over critical national infrastructure projects all over the world.
It's not just selling a product. It's exporting a technical standard and locking in future dependency for maintenance and upgrades.
Precisely. And we see similar strategic gains in ICT and robotics, even if the specific numerical targets weren't perfectly hit.
In ICT equipment, the timing was just perfect for them.
It was. They benefited from huge domestic demand and the fact that 5G was an emerging industry. There were no established global leaders with a huge incumbent advantage.
And Huawei capitalized on that.
They did. They solidified their dominance in the global 5G equipment market, holding a 35% global share in 4G and 5G base stations by 2024, even with all the international pressure.
And robotics is a slightly different story, right? It's a case study in strategic acquisition and then domestic scaling.
Right. So they missed the 70% localization goal for 2025. The current domestic market share is around 52%.
But that's still a tripling from 18% in 2015.
Exactly. That's rapid internal capacity building. But the big strategic achievement was the acquisition of KUKA, the leading German robotics firm, back in 2016.
Which gave them high-end IP and expertise instantly.
Instantly. And now you couple that with massive domestic deployment. China now accounts for 41% of the world's installed industrial robots. They've reached a density of 470 robots per 10,000 workers. The momentum is just transforming the manufacturing floor.
So these policies, subsidies, market access barriers, state procurement, they were never really about short-term profit, were they? The goal was always about enhancing domestic capability.
Always. Moving up the value chain.
But all of these successes, EVs, automation, clean tech, they all rely on the fundamental physical components of the digital world. They rely on semiconductors.
And the semiconductor sector is, without a doubt, the most heavily contested and strategically critical area in all of geotechnopolitics.
China's push here is a direct response to vulnerabilities.
Vulnerabilities created by foreign incumbents and, of course, export controls. This drive for self-reliance is backed by a monetary commitment that is, well, it's difficult to wrap your head around.
We should talk about that scale. State-led investment in the semiconductor sector has exceeded $150 billion by 2024.
And to put that in perspective, that is roughly 3 times the total funding in the U.S. JPS Act.
3 times?
And this funding is sustained. It's channeled through mechanisms like the National Integrated Circuit Industry Investment Fund, the BIG Fund, which has raised over $94 billion since 2014.
So it's not a one-time burst of spending.
No, it's a multi-decade, sustained financial assault on technological dependence. It demonstrates that independence is paramount, regardless of the short-term economic cost.
We also need to be clear about what part of the chip market this money is targeting, because it's a very focused strategy.
It is.
We hear a lot about the race for the most advanced cutting-edge chips, the 3-nanometer marvels for training AI models. But the most dramatic progress is actually in what are called foundational chips, mature node semiconductors.
Right.
So what exactly is a mature node chip, and why is dominating that market so strategically vital? That distinction is absolutely critical to understanding the geopolitics of this. Think of it this way. Cutting-edge chips, the 3-nanometer or 5-millimeter nodes, they're like the supercomputers. They train ChatGPT, they manage the most sophisticated military systems. They're the Ferrari of chips.
Mature node semiconductors, typically 28 millimeters or older, they are the indispensable infrastructure. They are the Toyota Camry of chips. They are in every car's anti-lock braking system, every refrigerator, every power grid component, every medical device, every missile guidance system.
They're the workhorses of the global economy, and they're crucial for basic industrial function.
Precisely. And China's capacity in these mature nodes has expanded at a breathtaking speed. Between 2015 and 2023, their capacity grew more than 4 times faster than global demand.
Wow. And that growth translated directly into market share.
It did. Their share of global wafer production capacity for foundational logic chips went from 19% in 2015 to 33% in 2023.
That is a huge chunk of the global foundational supply. And the projections are that this is just going to accelerate.
It will. Chinese chip makers are projected to account for nearly half of all new mature node capacity that comes online in the next 3 to 5 years. If that trajectory holds, they could reach self-sufficiency in foundational chips by 2030.
And achieving that means they eliminate a massive vulnerability in nearly every critical domestic sector: defense, energy, automotive.
Everything. And this rapid capacity build-out is already shifting the global foundry competition. You can see it in the rise of their domestic champions, especially SMIC.
The state-owned Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation.
SMIC has become a formidable global player. In the first quarter of 2024, it overtook the U.S.-headquartered GlobalFoundries to become the world's 3rd largest foundry by revenue.
The 3rd largest?
Yeah. They now hold about 6% of the global share, behind only Samsung and TSMC. That rapid rise into the top 3 is a clear sign that this massive state support is working.
So let's connect this back to the opening hook, the geopolitical leverage. What is the strategic playbook here with this hyper-focus on foundational chips?
The strategy is a classic dual-pronged approach. It uses scale for both domestic security and global leverage.
Okay, so prong 1 is domestic.
First, it ensures they capture their own enormous domestic market, which is one of the largest demand sources in the world. It accounted for over 30% of global semiconductor purchases in 2022. By dominating their domestic supply, they weaken foreign producers who used to rely on that market access.
And the second prong uses that domestic scale to go global.
Exactly. They leverage the excess supply to undercut competitors globally, establishing dominance in these critical lower-value segments. It creates an enormous price compression effect.
And we're already seeing the impact of that.
We are. Taiwan's Powerchip, a major foundry, has publicly announced it is pivoting its strategy away from certain mature node products and into new AI-related lines.
Specifically because of the intense cost-based competition from China.
Right. It's a deliberate strategy. Achieve massive scale, drive down prices, and force international competitors to either shift their business models or exit the foundational market entirely. And that creates those reverse dependencies we talked about.
This capacity build-out really is about strategic value, beyond just a simple scorecard. Even in areas like high-end CNC machines, where they missed the aggressive localization target.
Even there, yes. Chinese firms may still lag in the top-tier multi-axis machines, but the massive scale they built means they achieved over 99% domestic market share in low-end machines.
And crucially, they became net exporters of CNC machines since 2021.
The capacity and volume gains are substantial. They've created a highly scaled industrial base that can now innovate and move up the quality chain much faster, driven by that massive computing and AI infrastructure we discussed.
And that scale allows the projection of power outwards, which transitions perfectly into how this domestic strength is translated into global influence.
Through projects like the Digital Silk Road.
Right. If Made in China 2025 was the strategy for domestic tech accumulation, the Digital Silk Road, or DSR, is the framework for exporting that strength, and crucially, for reshaping global digital governance.
The DSR is strategic statecraft in action. It's totaled $22 billion in economic engagement in the Indo-Pacific between 2017 and 2023. It's an explicit comprehensive policy to leverage technology for geopolitical influence.
And the heart of it is this comprehensive smart cities toolkit. They're not just offering isolated products.
Now, it's a full, integrated stack of urban management technology. It's incredibly appealing, especially to developing nations who are looking for a single-source partner for their digital transformation.
And the tech categories cover everything. Surveillance systems like IP cameras, facial recognition, traffic monitoring from Huawei, Hikvision, Dahua.
Then there's the foundational network infrastructure, 4G and 5G backbones from Huawei and ZTE.
And they also supply the big data and cloud infrastructure needed to run it all. Data centers and servers from Huawei, Alibaba, Tencent.
And then they integrate it. We're talking about safe city solutions, unified urban operation platforms that manage everything from smart parking and street lamps to emergency response.
Yeah.
It's a holistic expert of urban management technology and standards.
So what we're really seeing is the export of an entire governance model. A tech ecosystem that assumes and promotes state control over data and digital life.
That's the crucial synthesis. The DSR is incredibly effective because it deepens partner economies' integration into a China-centric digital model. The deployments are often low cost, backed by state-owned lenders like the China Exim Bank.
Which gives them a huge financing edge over Western competitors.
A huge edge. And the dominance in key regions is palpable. Chinese tech firms, Huawei, Alibaba, ZTE, they led roughly 79% of Southeast Asia's smart city and data center contracts.
They're not just winning bids, they're physically embedding tech infrastructure that links these economies directly back to China's digital supply chains and governance standards.
And these are deeply strategic deployments. Network-connected facilities in the Maldives, partly built by Huawei, are positioned as a key node in a maritime digital route.
And the new Peace undersea cable lands at Chinese-controlled ports in Pakistan.
Right, in Karachi and Gwadar. These deep connectivity ties allow Beijing to project tech and economic power under the guise of infrastructure development. It cements them as the technological leader in the geopolitics of that entire region.
But this integration comes at a cost for the partners.
The financial obligations are immense. While Chinese companies gain market share, partners often incur significant debt. Pakistan's exposure to these BRI and DSR loans is estimated at $28 billion.
That level of exposure creates geoeconomic leverage. It links a country's fiscal health and their critical infrastructure directly to Beijing.
And in times of fiscal stress, that gives the creditor immense influence over policy decisions.
And finally, there's the governance dimension that travels with the technology.
Right. The DSR projects actively reinforce and export specific digital norms. They promote cyber sovereignty, and a model that often involves a tightly controlled internet and mass surveillance. This push for influence through tech standards ensures that China's worldview permeates the digital architecture of the region. So we've detailed these massive successes in computing power, EVs, solar, foundational chips. Now we have to ask the question, how did the system achieve so much momentum? When we look back at all of this, we can identify 4 recurring systemic drivers that determine where the greatest momentum was achieved. This is a policy system that's optimized for very specific types of industrial success.
Okay, let's unpack those drivers, because understanding them probably explains why the next decade will follow a similar pattern. The first one is focusing on industries with low barriers to entry and fostering vertical integration.
Shipbuilding is the perfect historical example. It predates MIC 25, but it defines the model. Massive, continuous state support since the year 2000 meant China was already the largest shipbuilding country by 2015.
And MIC 25 continued that support,
allowing their shipyards to underprice competitors globally. But the key was vertical integration. They developed the ability to produce the specialized marine steel, the high-capacity engines, the navigational electronics, all domestically.
So they're not just assembly plants.
They control the entire value chain. And that cemented their dominance in nearly every segment, from bulk carriers to high-tech LNG ships. Okay, the second driver. Effectively combining supply-side subsidies with demand-side incentives. It's not enough just to fund the factories. You have to guarantee a market for the products. The NEV sector is the premier example here. Policy provided huge supply-side grants for research and factory construction.
But the crucial step was stimulating demand.
By inducing state-owned enterprises and local governments to buy Chinese. Local policies mandated buying electric buses and taxis. And tax exemptions were only available if you used domestic components, especially Chinese-made batteries.
It creates a guaranteed, scaled-up market, an insulated launchpad for global competition.
Exactly. The third driver is emphasizing process innovation over pure basic research in certain fields.
A pragmatic approach.
Very. Success came in industries where the main challenge was applied engineering and factory floor efficiency, not breakthroughs in fundamental science. They excelled at improving on existing designs.
Like in nuclear energy.
Right. They didn't invent the tech, but they rapidly improved on transferred U.S. and European power plant designs. They streamlined construction and engineering to become the leading global builder of nuclear plants by just optimizing the deployment phase.
And the fourth driver is simply focusing on emerging industries without established global leaders.
This is where the real leapfrogging happens. The rapid dominance in EVs, 5G, and parts of AI is a testament to this strategy. When an industry is brand new, foreign firms don't have that incumbent advantage they hold in, say, aerospace.
Which allows Chinese firms, backed by state capital and guaranteed demand, to jump ahead and seize leadership. This whole systemic approach has created what you call the innovation flywheel. Technical advances in one sector rapidly catalyze breakthroughs in adjacent industries. We should probably explain that in more detail because it seems to be the system that ensures this momentum is sustained.
Think of it as networked, circular resource sharing. A key example is the battery and power system perfection that was driven by the NEV industry.
Oh.
Developing high-density, low-cost EV batteries requires immense process innovation, special materials, precise manufacturing. Those perfected battery and control systems are immediately essential for other next-gen tech.
Like autonomous vehicles.
Autonomous vehicles, grid energy storage, and especially complex systems like humanoid robots. The massive amounts of training data and the computing infrastructure built for autonomous driving research get instantly repurposed for industrial AI and smart factory optimization.
So the government doesn't have to fund every single technology from scratch. Success in one area, like EVs, makes developing something like industrial robots fundamentally cheaper and faster.
Because the core component ecosystem is already mature and scaled. Exactly. This rapid cross-pollination of data, components, and process expertise, this flywheel ensures sustained momentum.
And the most critical result of all this is the creation of reverse dependencies.
While the country is still working to reduce its reliance on foreign tech in some cutting-edge areas, the world is now increasingly relying on China-based production and Chinese firms in high-tech sectors like EVs, solar, telecom, and foundational chips. That shift fundamentally alters the geopolitical calculus.
We're also seeing this momentum accelerate progress in sectors with really long development timelines, like biotech.
Biotech is a great illustration of catching up through infrastructure and process optimization. The goal of bringing 20 to 30 innovative drugs into production by 2025 was met early. Chinese regulators approved 26 Class 1 innovative drugs in 2022 alone.
Let's quickly clarify that for you, the listener. What's the significance of a Class 1 innovative drug, and what's a CMO?
A Class 1 drug classification means it's a genuine innovation with a novel structure or use. It's not a generic or a slight modification. It represents a real breakthrough in domestic R&D. And CMO stands for Contract Manufacturing Organization.
Third-party companies that handle specialized drug manufacturing.
For pharmaceutical giants globally, yes.
And why are these CMOs so strategically important?
Because the infrastructure is key. The extensive biotech infrastructure and state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities are attracting top international talent to return and build major biopharma companies. And critically, Western biopharma companies are increasingly using Chinese CMOs for cost and speed.
And when Western firms use those CMOs?
It keeps Chinese companies central to global biotech supply chains. And crucially, it grants them access to key manufacturing information, process IP, and production know-how at the very cutting edge of drug development. It's a continuous legal transfer of process expertise.
So even in areas where the underlying science might be a few years behind, the structural foundation is being laid to close that gap much faster than traditional timelines would suggest.
Precisely. The entire system, the support, the vertical integration, the demand incentives, it's all designed to sustain this aggressive push across numerous strategically contested fields simultaneously.
Looking at the totality of the evidence from this deep dive, the explosive growth in computing power, the undeniable global dominance in clean tech and EVs, the foundational strength in semiconductors, the conclusion seems pretty clear. This technological transformation represents a massive structural achievement.
And this trajectory is sustained by a broader worldview where, economic efficiency is sometimes subordinated to long-term strategic goals of self-sufficiency and national security. The sheer determination to reduce dependence and achieve dominance, first at home and then globally, is the defining feature of this whole architecture.
The goal isn't just to compete.
The goal is to lead.
The enduring legacy of this strategic push is the creation of these interconnected industrial flywheels, this collective resource base where technical advances in foundational sectors rapidly catalyze breakthroughs in high-end adjacent industries. This momentum means that many of the ambitious objectives that haven't fully materialized yet could still come to fruition rapidly before 2030, reinforcing China's position in the microscopic architecture of the future and setting the stage for future global competition across all strategically contested fields. The world is transitioning into a period where technological and industrial scale is rapidly becoming the ultimate measure of geopolitical strength.